So the Democratic Alliance held one of their organized, corporate, excellent congresses to vote for their leadership. Now the DA being the second largest party in the country, and so in this video I'm going to show you what's going on. If you stay with me till my biblical reaction, you're going to catch some very valuable information that you're going to want to share with every South African that you know, because South Africa will prosper. Okay, so you're ready? Press like, let's go.
And your new chairperson of Federal Council, Ashor Sarupen.
So Helen Zille replaced by the current Deputy Minister of Finance, Ashor Sarupen. Now let's go to the Federal Executive.
The third Deputy Federal Chairperson is Solly Msimanga.
That's the Minister of Communications and Technology. And that's Solly, number 1.
The second Deputy Federal Chairperson elected is Solly Msimanga.
That's the previous Tshwane Mayor.
The first Deputy Federal Chairperson is Siviwe Kwahube.
Minister of Basic Education.
Democrats, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for your newly elected Federal Chairperson of the Democratic Alliance.
The duly elected Federal Chairperson is Solly Msimanga.
He's coming from being Gauteng provincial leader of the DA. Solly, number 2.
Delegates.
And then of course the replacement of John Steenhuisen is
The new federal leader of the Democratic Alliance is
and that's the current Cape Town Mayor.
Jordan Hill-Lewis.
That is the federal chairperson and the federal leader of the DA, being joined by the new Helen Zille, Ashor Sarupen. So he starts off by giving a shout out to the guy he beat for the position.
Sibusiso Dionase. Where is he? Stand up, Sibusiso. Come on, brother. Come on.
I've never heard of him, so this was a good way to get in the spotlight. It was clear he would not win this one.
Sibusiso, let me just say, this is a rising star in the DA. I've got to know him a bit. What a cool and genuine guy, and what a positive campaign that you ran. And let me say something about the kind of DA that we are trying to build. There should be absolutely no hard feelings between contestants. against each other in our party. In this party, we want the best for one another. We want people to succeed. I want you to succeed, brother. And I know that you are going to do great things in the DA and in South Africa. Well done.
Thank you very much.
So then he started giving a shout out of all past leaders, Tony Leon, Helen Ziller, and on. And he gave a shout out to Mmusi Maimane.
We respect all of those who have led our party throughout its history. So when Mmusi Maimane became the leader of the DA, I had the privilege, the genuine privilege, of serving as his chief of staff. During that time, I learned something that shaped my own understanding of leadership. I learned that politics is not only about policy or ideas, it's also about people. Mmusi had an ability to connect with South Africans from every background and every community. He reminded all of us that a political movement must remain rooted in the lives and experiences of the people it serves. He brought a new voice and a new ambition to our party. And that chapter remains an important part of our journey. And then came John Steenhuisen,
who put them in national government. So he gave a shout out to all the leaders, and it was positive even for Mmusi, and everyone ended up clapping.
Because I don't know about you, friends, but I am not satisfied being a junior partner in a coalition government. Our ambition must be to lead the national government. That is the next chapter in our party's proud history. That is the next chapter that all of us must write together.
And so that's basically the vision. He's going for gold. And so one of the first interviews where the SABC was dissecting this whole leadership thing had Celia Brink right there. And man, I think he got infected by the Helen Ziller virus. Listen to this.
My comment is that I think as a country we need to put it out there that the DA does not have the mandate to improve and develop the lives of black people, other than to navigate how to protect its economy and the interest of the West. And we had seen that in the Western Cape. They've got a good PR team that sells an illusion that makes them to look like a better party, of which that is just a tool they are using that makes us to overlook their flaws. And they've given us a tangible evidence of the inequality and non-equity that they operate from. They cannot govern the nation. Hence, they could not govern Cape Town to its maximum capacity, but only for a selected few. So we cannot have such a party to govern the nation. It is not for the best interest of the black people in this country, nor is it for the best interest of the brown people in this country. Although they speak of ending unemployment, the reason there's high gang rates in Cape Town, it is due to unemployment. And poverty births a gang. It cripples the mindset of those that have got no income or whatsoever. Yeah. So it definitely cannot be given a position to govern this country. And Hill-Lewis is definitely not the man.
No, I'm sorry. Nicolene is phoning right from the ANC radio room, and let me send a message back to Luthuli House. The difference between Cape Town and the rest of the country is that you actually have the broadest access to basic services in Cape Town. You don't have 777 million rand being spent on water tankers so that ANC, comrades and tenderpreneurs can benefit, as is the case in Tshwane. You actually have a government that puts infrastructure into the ground. And that is why people move from ANC-led municipalities and provinces to the Western Cape. And let's talk about the gang issue. It is the ANC national government, the Minister of Police, that is starving the Western Cape of policing resources. If you look, resources have been denied to the Western Cape. And what has the DA-led administration in the Western Cape and Cape Town done? They've deployed their own resources. They've acted outside of the traditional mandate of local and provincial government to make communities safe. So no, I'm sorry, to the ANC radio room, nobody buys that stuff anymore. We know that the DA is better at government. The key question for us, and Blaine, please allow me to finish this. The key question for us is, can we, as the DA, connect that reality to the lives of ordinary South Africans outside of Cape Town? It is a massive challenge. It is not an intellectual argument. It is an emotional appeal. People have to believe that the DA cares enough about their lives in order to offer solutions. And this leadership is determined to resonate and to deliver that message.
We must state categorically as well that we don't know where Nicoline is calling us from in terms of any political party affiliation. So that must be just put on record.
And before I give my absolutely transformative thoughts about the DA, look at what just happened at the Vaal.
Police are investigating a case of murder after a 40-year-old woman was shot and killed in broad daylight in Vanderbijl Park. The woman worked for the Emfuleni local municipality. She was at a local tire shop waiting for her puncture to be fixed when an unknown man fired several shots at her before fleeing the scene. The victim was declared dead on the scene. The motive for the attack remains unclear at this stage, and a police investigation is underway.
Definitely deliberately targeted.
And so this information would have revealed what exactly about the operations in Emfuleni? Are you aware what kind of information she would have given to you?
Yeah, the only thing that she told me is that she wanted to give me the information how these people, they are dishing the project at Emfuleni municipality on the supply chain.
So a municipal worker at Sidibeng was shot and killed because she was about to reveal corruption to this other gentleman. Here's a truth that many of us try to avoid. And if you black like me, you get called names, they tell you you are paid, you have handlers, just for seeing simple numbers. Emfuleni local municipality, ANC run, it literally is a neighbor to the Midvaal local municipality. DA run for a long time, Emfuleni ANC run for a long time. The lady who was shot in the head and murdered was about to release corruption at Emfuleni. Now, unemployment rate, Emfuleni, over 53%. Half of the people there have no job. Midvaal, where the DA has been in charge for a long time, it's under 20%. Financial health, severe debt. Emfuleni is in crisis. Midvaal, stable and good. Service delivery, it's poor at Emfuleni and failing. At Midvaal, excellent. Business climate, challenging. At Midvaal, favorable. The Heineken factory is there. Am I promoting the DA? No, I'm promoting facts. On top of that, just try remember when was the last time you heard of gross corruption happening at the DA and the person stayed in the DA and got promoted? Doesn't happen. Just think back and tell me of an example you can think of where in the DA someone was killed for tenders or corruption. You're going to think for a very long time. Here's the question. Why? My biblical reaction, then bring all of this together. The soul who sins shall die. The son shall not bear the guilt of the father, nor the father bear the guilt of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon himself. The wickedness of the wicked shall be upon himself. You know, as I've followed most of the discussions around the DA and their elections and all of that, it's very funny that most of the media keeps asking the DA questions based on ANC philosophy. Here's the big difference between the number one and number two party in the country. Black parties do not recognize an individual. That's why I could move to Cape Town tomorrow and stay in a suburb, and they will say that the DA looks after white areas. I'd like to know at which percentage of black people who live there does the area stop being a white area. If I and 1,000 other black people moved and stayed at Camps Bay, it will still be a white area because the philosophy does not recognize the individual. Now, the DA is a liberal party, a word that gets used for a whole lot of stuff. But bottom line, liberal means recognize an individual. So, one of the biggest fights that happens in the DA is people say, why don't you choose a white leader? Here's the problem. The DA can't do that because it's not the ANC in terms of philosophy. Just by nature, their philosophy says there's an individual voter who is going to vote, and whatever their vote is, that's what we go with. In the ANC, because their philosophy does not recognize the individual, well, they can just buy votes and buy groups and buy sections. Jordan Hill-Lewis is a white guy voted for by all the individuals in the conference. That's how liberals think. Like, there's an individual. I'm not going to override their choice and who they vote for. Number two, the federal chairperson of the DA right now is Solly Msimanga, who is a black guy. Now, for a liberal party to have a meeting in the side and just choose him means his success does not belong to him. And the celebration is a lie. But now here's the thing. If you go to the ANC conference, the guy who is in power does not deserve and has not worked for the power. He probably bought it. Some other committee put it together. That's why they deploy. Because you deploy resources. The same way that I am deploying this video onto YouTube. On the other hand, a liberal party does not deploy people. They compete, win, and get appointed, or they get voted for. Because they're not a thing. You can't deploy a person. You can only deploy a thing like money or an ambulance. You deploy it. Now, I'm one of the people, when I talk about the DA, I don't join the mob mentality pushed by propaganda that I have to say and distance myself from the DA. No, I will talk South African politics. And I will talk about all the parties that have an impact on South Africa, including the DA. And I will not distance myself from South African citizens. I sit as an individual. Number one, I read, which if you're black like me, you're not allowed to. Just look around and just read status updates so that you know enough how the whole group feels. And then that should be your position. You break that rule for number one. You read the Constitution. You read what every party stands for. You read what actually happened. You read who's actually responsible for the economy, which is responsible for poverty in Cape Town, and you realize everything they keep saying about how it's not for everybody. That's nonsense. If you read and you realize this is just a stupid poem that makes no logical sense, guess what happens? They'll say you've been paid, you have handlers, you're a sellout. All of that assumes I'm not an individual. Why am I a sellout? Because you're supposed to act for everybody. Think with everybody. It's called unite. Basically, die as an individual and just live as a black. They'll say someone's paying me because it cannot be that I actually would read and think. Whether I read my biblical reactions or I actually read the Constitution and read the Constitution of every party, come to a conclusion about what makes sense and what is just dumb poetry, because only individuals think. Groups do not think. think. Why is the corruption like this? Because if someone takes a position under the DA, because the philosophy says you're an individual, they kind of think if I steal, I shall die. And I will bear my own guilt and not the guilt of my blackness or my whiteness. But if you're not an individual and you are there as a black, well, if I steal, they're going to blame the blacks. See, I'm off the hook. And that's why the DA delivers more. It's not because of anyone's skin color, but how come the blacks in the DA don't steal, but all the blacks in the ANC steal? It's philosophy, my brother. And it's very interesting that South Africans have been brainwashed by this, because all of the media undermines an individual, especially because that's constitutional. That is a value of South Africa. Any philosophy that undermines the individual gets closer to murder, because murder only matters if you murder an individual. Anytime people undermine the sanctity of an individual, corruption is straight up. I heard many interviews saying, do you have enough women? But who's supposed to choose these women? Didn't you see a whole hall full of people and each of those individuals voted? Yeah, but we want to balance it. Yeah, but that's ANC philosophy. And here's the interesting thing. ANC fights to have 50-50 women and men. Who cares what the individuals say? Who's produced the real superstar women? It's been the DA. Helen Zille's just come out of leadership, but she's the second most influential politician in South Africa after the president. Give me a name in the ANC that's really influential or impressive. Can't find one. I'm not bashing any individual, but I'm talking about what the philosophy actually produces. And so I thought I'd say this because maybe someone is a South African and they're listening. Well, then you can be an individual. They might call you a sellout. Yes, fine. They don't like individuals. Think about it. I don't actually know why people sometimes make a big deal about what race they are. They make it sound like it took vision, action, and determination, and finally I accomplished being black. Listen, I had nothing to do with it, okay? I didn't plan it. I didn't work on it. It's not an accomplishment. And this is what this does. It steals from individuals the ability to accomplish, because you take a fake accomplishment that has nothing to do with you. If your parents had married a Chinese person, you would have not come out black. You had no vote. You had no contribution. You didn't give advice. So let's stop making blackness to be an accomplishment so that we can actually accomplish real things. To accomplish real things, you need individuals who allow themselves to be individuals. Prosperity will only come from the parties in our country that respect the individual, because prosperity has never come from a group. The ANC will promise you to do things for our people, but you listen to them talk. It is genocidal talk. The MK, only 15% voted for them, but they say, we speak for blacks. Which ones? All of them. Okay, but what about the ones who didn't give you their vote? They do not exist. That's why you can speak like they don't exist. It's a philosophy that says that not the soul who sins shall die. The son will bear the guilt of the father. See, it doesn't recognize two individuals. The so-called black parties are the only ones who are having murders amongst them. Of course, a philosophy that doesn't recognize individuals will go there. That's why the greatest corruption and theft and stealing we see at every commission has happened under black parties. Is it because of black? No, it would have been the same thing if it was a white party. Why? Because it undermines the individual. Once you undermine the individual, at some point, you will do some seriously bad things against individuals. You'll come on my chat and say I'm paid by the CIA. When you say it about me, what makes me feel sad is that those people are saying about themselves, I could never think, reason, and reach a conclusion. And that is the biggest shame in our country. That's why I always say no man can serve two masters, for either you love the one or hate the other, or you despise the one and honor the other. You can't serve God and Karl Marx. Why? Because God says you're an individual. Karl Marx says you are a class. You are part of a group. You don't really exist under your name with this in your head and this in your heart and the talents in your hands and the abilities that God put inside you. None of them exist. You are just black or Afrikaner or white or whatever. That's why it goes all the way, and you find a lot of murder in the same parties. Why? Because they are used to wiping people off the face of the earth and they don't exist. What did the lady say there? She said, you are protecting your economy. I get wiped off the face of the earth? Yes, because you are black and the economy is in white hands. What happens to the economic activity I have done? Yeah, but you don't own the means of production. I think I do. Even this video, I think it's produced completely by my means. So what happens there? No, we wipe you off the slate of the earth. Why? Because individuals don't exist. And with that thinking, there's no prosperity. Now I've explained to you why many countries on some continents have struggled to prosper, because they have not a single individual in a population of 50 million. And only individuals spark off prosperity. So, anyway, let's make history together. Cheers.